Testing and validation are essential to ensure a smooth user experience. In Module 2, we briefly touched on different types of testing and how they can impact your app's development. In this module, we will cover first, we start by learning how to do form validation in FlutterFlow. Then, we learn about automated testing, what they are, and how to set up automated tests to save time and reduce human error. Then, you will learn how to run tests for your FlutterFlow app, and then we will explore the importance of testing on actual devices to catch issues that simulators might miss. After that, we will discover how Firebase Test Lab can assist to run your app across multiple device configurations. And finally, we will cover how to handle and review the code FlutterFlow generates during testing. With no hesitations, let's break each of these down. Form fields can be found on many screens in our applications, from the login and sign up page to the chat page where we're just writing the prompt for an AI chatbot. Validation is checking user input for correctness and ensuring it meets a specific criteria or requirements. This can include checking for presence of required field, verifying that a value is within a particular range or format, or validating against a custom pattern. It helps improve data accuracy, enhance user experience, and reduce errors that could lead to bugs or crashes. In FlutterFlow, you can add validations to input fields by wrapping them inside the form widget. The form widget enables you to validate user inputs and display appropriate messages when validation criteria are not met. For example, you could use it to check if a user has given a valid email or password. This makes it easy to handle user input, ensuring the data is correct before being submitted to the server or stored locally. And if it's valid, run the appropriate actions. When you wrap with form widgets, if you select the form widget from the widget tree, you will see the validation section in the properties panel. Each field may have different validation requirements, or you may set them up differently. For example, let's take a look at text field. You may set the minimum or maximum characters allowed or required. Choose a predefined text validator such as email, or even write your own with custom regex. Regex, short for regular expression, is a pattern matching tool for searching, matching, and manipulating text based on specific patterns. In the context of form validation, regex allows you to enforce rules on what type of input is acceptable. For example, you can use regex to validate email formats, phone numbers, or other specific strings. Here's an example in Dart that you can match IP addresses with regex. There are many tools online that can help you to write regex and test if you need specific patterns that are not available in FlutterFlow. You can also select auto-validating for forms. Rather than displaying an error message after the user submits the form, you can provide real-time feedback as they type in the text field to indicate validation errors. This feature can be handy for lengthy forms, saving the user time and effort. You can also validate the form when you are done entering a value inside the text field using onSubmit action. All right, that's all about the form validation in FlutterFlow. Let's take a look at the demo quickly. All right, I'm back to my application, and we already had create page and login page. What we want to do here in this case, we want to wrap the login page to make sure when users sign in or click on sign in button, if email or password is not filled or they are not correct, so they cannot actually do this action at all. So let me go to the element, and here is the form validation. So let me go back to the widget tree. Let me select this email. So I have this column right now, and either I can wrap the entire column, or let me just go and add one more column here. All right, that's it. And then I'll move my email, password, and the button here into the new column. So let me just reorder email and password. Now I can wrap my column with a form validation. Beautiful. So if I now go down to the properties panel of the form, you see now we have validation. What I can enable automatically validate as well. And then let's fix the pattern for email address. So the first thing is that we need to select a text validator here. So it's going to be an email. Beautiful. If there is any error for this email, let's say email is not valid. All right. And let's also write a default error message. So actually, I'm not going to write anything right now. Let's keep it as is. The minimum requirement, at least going to be 3-letter. And the maximum allowed, it's okay. Just leave it as is. Let's do the password as well. The password field minimum requirement should be at least 3-letter because we need that in our server. For example, if you need more, you need to put more, and that's it. Beautiful. So then let's go and check sign in. So to make sure that I can recognize this form, I'm going to go and change the name of the form. Let's call it login form. All right. Now what we can do, we can go and select the button here, go to the action that we had. So what we can do right now, we want to make sure that this action is going to happen when the form is valid. So I'm going to add a new action. Let's search for validate form, and there you go. And now I can select the form that I just named it on this page, login form. And let's move that up. And in case the form is not valid, then we just want to terminate this. We can also disable this and get the value and probably add a condition here. Let's quickly do that. Let's call it is login validated. And I'm going to go and add a condition. And now we're going to have the output of the action from the previous action is login validated. And in case it's validated, let me just cut this action. And that's going to be true. So I'm going to paste it here. And if it's not, let's just go ahead and show in a snack bar. Let's say form is not validated. All right, beautiful. So now we're making sure the action happens in case that the form is fully validated. All right, let's close this right now and go and test it out. All right, now our app is back. I have my login page. Let's just go ahead and do nothing right now and sign in. And there you go. Form is not validated, exactly as we expected. I will actually start writing my email. And as you can see, it's giving me an immediate feedback that my password or my email is not validated. That's just because we enabled automatically validated. And if both validated, then we should be able to sign in. That's it. Beautiful. Let's move on to the next video. Let's start with why testing is important. Catching bugs early ensures a smoother app performance and reduces time spent fixing issues later. Also, it will save cost and make your customers happier. This approach aligns with the concept of shifting left, where testing is done earlier in the development process. In fact, if a bug happens in production, the cost of fixing that is way more than finding that earlier in the stage of development. In unit testing, we focus on testing individual pieces of code like custom code functions, ensuring each part works correctly in isolation. In contrast, integration testing or automated test examines how components and widgets interact, ensuring they work seamlessly together. Before you add and run any test, it's important to understand the workflow. In FlutterFlow, you will create automated tests in a series of steps. Just think you want to test your app manually. Then map out a series of steps that you do to dictate how the test should engage with the app. There are 3 steps that you need to follow. First, you need to define interacting with widget. Then, you need to wait until it loads. And finally, you need to expect a result. Let's go deeper into these series of steps. Interact with the widget simulates user interactions with your app, such as tapping on a button or entering text into a field. When you add this step, you can specify what kind of action type you would like to simulate and on which widget. There are several action types that you can select. For example, you can have the tab, enter a text, or long press, or scroll until visible. Typically, after an interaction, your test might need to pause momentarily, allowing the app to process the interaction, load something, or update its state. This is where the wait to load mechanism comes into play. This ensures that the app has enough time to reflect any changes. When this is selected, you have 2 options to adjust: duration, which means how long you want to wait, and timeout, maximum time to wait. As a best practice, I recommend adding another wait to load step after every interact with widget. Sometimes you may think it's unnecessary, but typically adding wait to load may be wise. Also, start your test at least for about 3 seconds or 3000 milliseconds. After performing an action in your app, it's important to verify that the result matches your expectations. This is the verification step where you can confirm that the app behaves as expected after the interaction. Here, you can confirm whether a particular widget is present on the screen. First, you must locate and identify the widget. FlutterFlow offers several ways to identify and locate widgets. For example, select from UI Builder. Use the UI Builder's interface to select the widget you want to verify visually. Find by value key. Locate the widget by its unique value key. To add a value key to a widget, use the value key property under the testing section on the widget's property panel. Find by type. Search for a widget based on its type, like text or button or container. Find by semantic label. It's useful for locating widgets with a specific semantic label. Find by text. Locate a widget that displays a specific text. Find by descent. Search for a widget with a specific child or ancestor. When you select this, you must first specify what is the descendant of, where you can again use any of the method to identify and locate the widget. And then select widget to locate the ancestor or child, where you can again use all of the methods to identify the widget. After locating your widget, then set what you expect to find using any of the below options, including find nothing, finds one widget, is disabled, has a state, and so on. You can access the automated testing from the navigation menu in the FlutterFlow App Builder dashboard. After adding a test, you can define your steps and preconditions, give it a name, and also use the preview page to select the widgets in case you want to use UI Builder to help you to find any widget on any selected page. Remember that when your tests are defined, you can now go ahead and download your project or use FlutterFlow CLI or desktop app to export the generated code and then run the test. All right, let's just quickly see a demo how we can do that. All right, back to my project. I want to now go ahead and write at least one test. So what we can do right now, I can open the test, the automated test panel. And as you can see, I can go ahead and create a new test or a group. For example, a group is very helpful if you want to test a group of tests that are related together. Let's say if I want to just test everything related to login page, I will actually create a group first here. And if I set any setting here as precondition, for example, then it will apply to all of the tests under the login page group. So here is a precondition. For example, you may have login, and then you may need to pass email and password in this case. All right, that's actually good. We want to do that. Let's go ahead and write our email. This is a test. I'm just going to write a password here. Beautiful. You may have more preconditions, so you can go ahead and add that. I'm going to go back to the test now and create a new one, a new test. So we're going to go and test login page. So here is my login page. Let's create two tests for now. The first page, check if login page loads. All right. So we don't need to define precondition. Let's go directly to the steps. The step one is I just want to make sure that we have the email, password, and sign in button. So first, wait a bit, let's say 3 seconds. And I will make sure that we have at least 5-second timeout. And in the next step, I don't want to interact with the widget. Actually, I want to expect directly. So what we can do, we can go to the expect result, select, and I can now go ahead and select with one of these options. So I can go and select with UI Builder. Then it helps me to select the text field that I want. Let's confirm. And here I want to say if it exists, or in this case, finds one widget. All right, beautiful. We need to repeat this step right now for the rest of the form as well. Let's confirm the password, finds one widget, and also the button. Confirm, and there you go, finds one widget. So this is going to test if the login page loads, or at least the fields for login are available. And you see that now we don't do any interaction. So let me go and save this or add this test. And now go back to the login page group. We have one test with 4 steps. And I'm going to go and add a new test. Let's call it login works. So in this case, what we're going to do, we're going to define our steps here. First, I want to enter my email here. So therefore, I can go ahead and interact with the widget. What kind of action I want to do? I just want to enter text. And then for which widget? I've not defined any key value or type or anything like that. I can actually say like find here and then write my type, or the key value and write my key value. But for now, I'm going to select from UI Builder. That's going to be the email. Make sure we're confirming and then add the email here. All right. So before even doing that, I would like to actually add a wait and loading, let's say for 3 seconds and a timeout of 5 seconds. Let me just reorder this right now, move it to the up, and that's it. So first wait and then interact, and that's good. Let's repeat this right now for password. So we're gonna just enter, selecting from UI Builder, the password, confirm, and then put the password. I'm just put a random password. Okay, sounds good. And then step 4, it would be just again interacting with the widget. And this time we're gonna tap on which widget? The button widget, sign in. Beautiful. Let's confirm. And now I'm gonna wait a bit. Let's say I'm gonna wait for at least 2 seconds and I give a 5-second timeout. Like if user after 5 seconds cannot log in, we really need to figure out why. It's too long, to be honest. We need to even reduce this time. Let's say actually 3 seconds as well. So, and maybe the duration should be 2 seconds. All right, so now after we waited, so what will happen? So in this scenario, actually, the page is going to be redirected to the product list page. And here we can find what we are looking for to expect. For example, I can just say expecting in this case. So you see that now we are following different steps. We're now interacting with widget, we wait, and then we expect some result. And what do we really expect here? We really expect that maybe seeing top selling text. Yes. So then let's say the top selling text, confirm. Either I can say find one, or another thing we can do is I can say find by text. Find by which text we want to do. Let's say top selling. This is another way that we can add a method. And then what do we want to find? We want to find one widget here. Beautiful. So one more thing I want to tell you is that all the steps are here. You can go ahead and even rename the steps if you wish, or disable them if you need. All right, that's it for this test. I'm going to add this test. And now we have 2 tests all the way. Now we have 2 tests up and running. All right, now let's go and download our source code. In fact, I already have downloaded. I'm just going to update my local with the FlutterFlow CLI. All right, now I downloaded the code and I opened it in my editor. So this is a VS Code. And as you can see, now I have 2 more folders here, test drive and integration test. I'm going to open the integration test and go to the test. And that's where you can find what you have written. Just take a look at that. All the things that you've written are coming as a step, like the login page, the steps, and what we are testing. So we're testing this and all the way what we are expecting. Beautiful. So let's go ahead and run this test. The way that you can run this test is using Flutter CLI. So I'm going to use Flutter CLI just to show you there are multiple alternatives for running the integration test. So in this case, I have already opened my simulator because when we are running integration tests, we are running the entire app to test everything together. So that's why you will see that the app is going to be installed, it will be tested, and then it will close down again. Let's see what happens. There you go. The app is installed. So now it's testing. So it's a bit of waiting because we just added. We are in the sign in page. Beautiful. Then soon we're going to see the email is filled. Beautiful. Just keep in mind, this email is actually a real test account. And when we run the test, FlutterFlow literally connect to Firebase authentication. And then the sign in button is tapped. Then there is a little bit of waiting. After that, we will see the homepage and the top selling. And now the test should be done, and then we should see the results. Beautiful. Both tests passed. So it says all tests passed. All right, that's fantastic. So now you can go ahead and write more tests for your application. As much as you can, try to test the critical part of your application, like the sign-in page that I just did. All right, let's move on to the next video and learn more about testing. While automated testing is great and will help you build higher quality apps, manual testing is important, especially on real devices. Although this can be optional, but great to have. There are several ways that you can test your application manually. You can start testing while still developing before publishing. Technically, that's what we have done so far throughout this course. After you have tested yourself on your team, you can move on to close beta testing. For this, you can use Apple Test Flight or Google Close Testing Track, which you will learn about them in Module 19. Finally, you can also test with your public beta testers, where you can again use Apple Test Flight or the beta tester track. For example, Apple Test Flight helps you download your application on your phone and start testing immediately before anyone else publicly can have access to. Once you are confident and have passed these steps, you can publish your app to production. While testing your app on an actual device or simulator on your computer, consider that there are different modes for FlutterFlow apps, which are technically Flutter apps: debug, profile, and release mode. Let's talk about debug mode first, which you are familiar the most. Debug is when you develop and spend most of your time and is the least performant and more enhanced for development. This is exactly what we have done throughout this course. The profile mode is a good spot for both testing closer to production and running the app to test performance before building the app for production. So in this mode, you can capture different statistics and analysis of your app related to performance, especially. Then, release mode is where you build a final app and publish it to the App Store and Google Play Store. That is the most optimized version of your app. You can always locally run with any of these flags that I have just showed you on the screen and test your application in different mode, whether on a simulator or on a real device. Please read more on Flutter documentation website to learn how you can wirelessly or using USB connect your iPhone and Android phones to your computer to run your app on an actual device in different mode. While testing on one device is great, there is another way that you can test automatically on multiple devices. Let's go to the next video and talk about Firebase Test Lab. You can test your app on the simulator and a real device, as we have seen so far. However, it's often tested with one specific version or maybe limited device types. In many cases, you may want to test your app on a much more extensive portfolio of devices and ensure it works perfectly on all of them, such as those with different sizes, OS version, etc. That's where Firebase Test Lab comes in. It's a cloud-based app testing infrastructure that allows you to test your app on a wide range of real devices and configuration. It helps to ensure your app works well across different devices and scenarios without needing physical access to those devices. You can run Flutter integration tests or automated tests in Firebase Test Lab, and you can configure them to test on a wide variety of different screen sizes, OS versions, and device types. Head over to the Flutter documentation website for a step-by-step guide on running your tests on the Firebase Test Lab. Happy testing! All right, here is my generated code right now. Let's take a look at what has happened after we added testing. We briefly touched on the integration test folder in the previous videos. And now we're going to take a closer look here. Okay, let me just open the tests. All right, here is my test page. And as you can see, we have the set up all, and that's for running all of these services that is required to run each of these tests. We also have setup, which is going to run before each of these tests. We created a group for our test, and that actually appears as a group here under the test. And each test that we are writing is going to be a test widget. So that's the name we are providing. And then you're going to have the tester as a fallback here. For example, in the beginning, we've been waiting for application, and that's actually pump and settle. And here is the third step. So we have the expect right now, which we are going to find one of our widgets, and then we expect what we want to see here. For example, one widget for email address. We used the UI builder to select this, but this is already has a value key assigned to that widget. All right, let me show you quickly. So let me just copy this. And now I'm going to go back to my login page. So if I search for this, you will see that my text field has now a value key, which is automatically added here when you're using the UI builder. You can also add your value key under the testing in properties panel, as we have seen in the previous modules. All right. So here's another test that we have written. And again, it's loading our application, and the page that we are testing is going to be the login page in this case. And then we're going to wait a bit. We're going to enter this user. As you can see, we are finding the text field by the value key, and then entering for the password. We're going to tap, and we're going to settle. And that's it. So then we're going to find this by a text. Beautiful. So, and this is the test and the way that is generated for us. So one more thing I want to show you is the package that is installed. So if you go to pub/spec YAML file, you're going to have integration test package. And that's a dev dependencies. This package is enabling you to write such an automated test or integration test for Flutter.